Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my photo editing live stream where uh, you submit your images and I do my best to edit them. And this week I'm going to be using Photolab 7. I'm a little rusty doing editing live, so excuse me, give me uh, give me a little slack today while I kind of get back into the groove of doing live editing. I do editing every day on my own images, but it's very different when you're editing someone else's. But it's good to see everyone here. Oh my goodness, we have Lasse, Andy Allen. Good to see you from Los Angeles, and Calvin Kendall and Robin. How are you, Robin? Wow, I can't believe you made it to a live stream here because I know how late it is over there. And then Plato, awesome. Uh, I'm doing the let's see, Darko, John follows. My screens are all different when I do live streams because I have to edit on the big screen. But anyhow, good morning, and Zoltan. So, oh, you know what? Let me. Just occurred to me. Let me know if you guys can see and hear me. Okay, I think everything's working. Oh, there is uh, there is one technical thing I forgot to do. Because last week, when I did a stream, the stream just ended abruptly twice. And I think I know what the problem is, but I forgot to change that setting before I went live today. So if the stream ends for no reason, like let me know in the chat because last time, even though the stream ended, I could still see some of the chat. So just be sure to let me know if it's ended and I can restart it, and then you'll just have to go back to my YouTube page, and you'll see the live stream continue there. But hopefully, I'll be able to get through these. I only see 7 images today came in. So if I do about 5, 10 minutes each, I should be able to knock these out in about an hour, and everything looks good. Okay, so without further ado, let's just get into the editing. Um, let me go over here. So basically, let me turn off this. That way you can see. I wonder if I can move that. Let me move this somewhere. All right, good. So let me just confirm everybody can see the screen, can see me in the corner, and um, we're good. We're good with to start editing. I think everybody can see everything. So first image here is actually from John Follows. So see, we have a beautiful landscape, nice kind of haze, I guess, or very, very mild fog. And I feel like I've seen this location before, maybe from a different angle, but it looks familiar to me for some reason. And my initial thoughts, what I always do in my editing, for those of you that are not familiar with DxO um, or how I edit photos in general, is I like to just apply some of the basic things first um, that DxO does. So I'm going to apply noise reduction, lens correction, chromatic aberration, um, and a tiny, tiny bit of sharpening. And I have that set up as a preset. Um, so I just click one button. So let me do that first. So I'm going to do apply preset. And I have it here, Rob. I call it Rob's default. And what that's going to do is, like I said, everything I said, plus two sort of an automatic exposure correction. So if the image was too dark, it'll brighten it up some. And if it's too bright, it'll darken it, etc. So it does a little mild editing for me. It's a good starting point. I see a question here. It says, "Hi Rob, do you use OM Workspace to load images to PC from camera, then load to DxO?" No, typically, actually, I typically load into Lightroom first, and then apply keywords and star ratings and anything else I want to do. Um, I'm trying to get away from doing that, but I do that first. A lot of times, for a little while, I was using Adobe Bridge to import and do the exact same thing. But it was difficult to have two different workflows, one for DxO and one for Lightroom. So I just decided to keep Lightroom for importing and cataloging the images and managing them that way. And then because I still use Lightroom to do editing for my professional work and also for times when I need to use Photoshop to do additional editing and layering and all the things that Photoshop can do. So, but primarily for my um main editing, for my personal stuff, uh, I use DxO. And for my work stuff, I use DxO first. I apply all the things I talked about, that automatic preset I just showed you. I apply that to all of the images, export them, and then I take them into Lightroom or Photoshop to do layering. Because Photoshop does things that DxO still doesn't do, like panoramas, HDR, and of course, Photoshop does layering and all kinds of advanced tools in Photoshop that you really can't do in any other software that I like to do time to time. Content replacement, they got that new AI. Anyway, so that, yeah. So no, I could use Workspace, but I've been a Lightroom Photoshop user for a long, long time. And it's just hard to break away from that workflow. And then John McCormick says, I had the pleasure of doing beta testing on Photolab 7, so I hope you're enjoying it. Yes, I really like it. I mean, the workflow is a little better. So it with the control points, because I love using the control points in Photolab 7. That's one of the best tools that DxO has, and it's their signature tool for me. And the only reason I really use it, that and the denoising. And I think Photolab 7 gives me the best results by significant margin. A little less so now that Lightroom has added their own denoising algorithms, but still DxO still gives me the best results, particularly with my Fujifilm cameras now. I would say it's as good as, or if not better than, Capture One in that respect for Fujifilm files. So anyway, let me go ahead and get into the editing here. So I've applied the presets, and from here, what I'm looking for is, well, from here, what I like to do is just consider the white balance. And I think, um, let me just eyeball what daylight might look like. That's a little bit cooler. And this is a cloudy scene because of the fog and the clouds, right? So I like to kind of look at that. And yeah, I kind of like that a little better. So I tweak the white balance next because white balance has an effect on the overall exposure or perceived exposure of the image. Because if you see, I'm kind of turning this into kind of a mixed editing and tutorial on Photolab 7 or my photo editing process. Because you can do these things in any software. But you can see this looks brighter, even though technically I didn't change the exposure. All I did was change the white balance. And then this might look a little bit darker and cooler, but we're going to go with cloudy. So that's the second thing I always do is apply white balance. And then what I start to do is I start to look at composition. Now that I have the basic lighting and everything applied that I want in white balance, I start to look at the composition and see what areas of this image interest me. And there's a lot, overall as a landscape, it's really beautiful, but I always try to find something. Hopefully, I don't have to crop in too much. I used to get accused of that a lot, getting cropping in way too much. But and it's all very subjective from here, right? But for me, being an architectural type photographer, I like to always look for some kind of geometry and framing that I can use in the image to whatever subject. Now, because the landscape is the subject, it's hard to find, it's hard to frame a subject when the whole image is the subject. Uh, so what I do from that point is I really start to look for geometry within the subject that I might be able to take advantage of. Um, and to see if there's any other sort of perspective corrections I might need to do, like straightening the horizon or lines, things like that. And I also look for lighting. So I see some lighting here. So lighting looks like, even though the light's very soft, I like to try to figure out where the lighting's coming from. So if we look at the shadows over here, I can see that the lighting's coming in from the right side over and then creating shadows on the left. Because I might want to do some very, very mild gradients or light painting to kind of emphasize where the light is shining. And so I think, let's see, we have a rectangle here, kind of a triangle here and here. And there's a nice triangle right here. I like this one. And then down in here, the trees are nice, but we're too far away to make really any use of these. So I think what I'll do is I'm gonna try and compose on the top half of this image because this little lake or pond and trees, the composition just doesn't work for me. But I like this line here. So let me go to sort of a very wide. Let's just start with a 16 by 9 and see where that takes us. And see if I can take advantage of, whoops, take advantage of this line here. It's a little cleaner, but we need maybe a little more depth. So I'm going to keep some of this tree line and see if I can work with, okay, I think I'll go with this. So my thinking here is we have a little bit of a line coming up from this corner, maybe kind of drawing the eye in through the water and and then kind of wrapping back around this way. So I have kind of a counterclockwise type flow. Because our eyes tend to go left to right. So we're going to start in the bottom left and then work our way counterclockwise. So I think this will be my composition. And now let me go over here to the selective tones and just try and bring in a little more contrast so I can add some depth to the image. Because with all the fog and everything, it makes the image a little bit flat. It doesn't have sort of that depth or dimension. Um, so I'm going to really try and do what I can there. But I don't want to lose this haze because I think that's sort of part of the feeling of this image um, that you were going for. The highlights go a little bit higher there. Okay. And then okay, now I might have to get into some local adjustments because what I'm trying to do is bring in a little bit more contrast in here without losing that haze. But when I do that, I make the trees a little bit too dark. So I need to go into some local adjustments at this point. And let me just see if I can create a little contrast in the colors first. So just globally, let's pull the saturation, push the vibrance up. and see if I can create a little separation in the colors this way. Okay, that works. So that's without, okay. I like that. Now let me do some local adjustments. And I don't know if there's any hope of bringing in any of the clouds up here. Let me just crank up the clear view and the highlights. Okay, there's not very much in terms of clouds up here, so uh, I'm going to add a negative here. Yeah, I'm not getting much. I'm going to leave the clouds out. I'm not going to do more than that. Maybe cool it off a tiny bit. Okay, leave that alone. Okay. All right, and I'm not sure I like that line. I'm just going to leave it off. Okay, we'll add a new control point. Let's just push this just a tiny bit warmer. Same thing over here, down here. Okay. And I'm going to add a little bit of contrast here in the trees. All right. Just a little bit down in here. Okay, good. And then add a new point up in here. And what I want to do here is maybe just add a little bit more contrast. Just on this side. The other thing I want to note is that I have Film Pack 7 installed. So there might be one or two sliders here that you may not have in just regular Photolab Elite. Uh, specifically in this case, it's going to be the fine contrast slider. But it's just kind of a nice little, gives a nice little extra pop if I need it to, or softness if I go the other direction that I can't really get with just regular contrast and micro contrast. Okay, that's looking good. Let me see what happens up here. Yeah, not much here, so I'm gonna get rid of that. All right, let me get a feel for where we're at here. So that's the before, that's the after. A little bit too punchy, maybe. I'm gonna see if I can bring the highlights on this water down a bit, and that might be the last local adjustment I do. And add a little bit of clear view. And let's cool it off so it looks a little more blue. Maybe not quite that much, just a hint. Okay. Do a little more here, down here. And this time we'll do luminance. So the other thing I like about the control points is you already have sort of a luminosity and chroma masking with every control point. So if it's kind of bleeding a little bit too much into other areas, I can back it off by adjusting the sliders here. See, maybe a little more clear view on the water. Did you see the red areas, the masking? That's showing me where the control points are having the most effect. And then it's a little bit more subtle as it goes out of those areas to make it look more natural, I think. I think I'm almost done. The only thing I might do from here is maybe just warm it up a tiny bit more, but more on a you may let me just warm it up a tiny bit more. Okay, and I think I'm done. Sometimes I like to add a little vignette. I'll just do it quick and easy with the film pack. Nah, that looks like crap. All right. All right, I think I'm done. So let's export this and then we'll do a before and after comparison. And then while that's exporting, oh, it's done. All right. And then I'll look at the chat for some questions or comments. So I'm going to do a comparison with the export. Yeah, compare with the standard output. Oh, let me reset this. Now I can compare it. All right, so there's the before and after. Uh, and I think I'm missing something, but so yeah, I think this area down here is kind of the most uninteresting part uh, to me. And I wanted to add a little bit more detail without taking away from sort of that softness of the scene. So let's go back to the full screen. Oops. So there's my final edit, and there's the before. Okay, let me take a look at the comment. I think Rick had a couple. DxO under Preference tab, General tab, I have Super Raw Noise checked. Not sure what this is. DxO color rendering pad, do your camera body OM1 tab. Okay, I've never noticed the super raw DxO color. Let me take a look at that real quick. I don't see this tab you're talking about because I got generic rendering and I got the film pack stuff and then the profiles. Yeah, that's something I haven't seen before, super raw. I'll look into it though. Um, okay, there's my edit. All right, let's go to the next one. This is wow, this is some kind of aurora. I've never seen one in real life. There's been a couple opportunities um, that I've missed in my local area to see them. I'm just not in that environment, like, or group that knows when these things happen locally. I need to get into that. But anyhow, this one here is basically another landscape scene, but with colors in the sky, right? So I'm going to do my same thing. I'm going to apply my basic preset and then white balance. I don't think I need to do anything here 'cause I don't know what colors these are supposed to be. I don't have a feel. Composition, I think the same thing here because there's a lot of stuff up here, but it doesn't add anything to the image really other than this strong sort of magenta color. Um, so I'm gonna probably again crop wide on this. Probably crop a lot wider. Let's do 16 by 7. And I think that works. So we got about 1/3 landscape. Of course, there's a lot. There's some really nice sand down in here. Let's see, 16 by 9. I don't need that much. Maybe about that much. I don't know. I kind of like that really wide, but I'll. All right, let's see what we can do about bringing some of the landscape back. It's almost pitch black, so it's going to be a train wreck trying to bring that back. Um, wow. Yeah, that's bad. This obviously was a long exposure because I see all these dead pixels everywhere, which happens when you don't do in-camera noise reduction or long exposure noise reduction. So, what camera was this? This is the OM1. Okay, 13-second exposure. All right, that makes sense. ISO 3200. Okay, so I see some banding up in here. I don't know if that's natural or if that's a problem with the long exposure, but I'm gonna leave that. I kind of like it a little bit. Um, I'm just gonna preview some areas here. This is a little preview window of the DxO Deep Prime just to see how it's looking. Because sometimes with very high ISO and very dark images, the Deep Prime, particularly with starry skies, I've noticed I've had to adjust the noise model here to back off a little bit. Well, not a little bit, but entirely. I'm going to back off the noise model. So the noise model basically it applies more noise reduction as you slide it to the left, kind of, and as you slide it to the right, it applies a little bit less, but not less, but tries to extract more detail. But the problem with very low or very dark images, when it tries to extract detail too much, you start to get weird artifacts. The problem with going the other direction, where it's not trying to extract so much detail, is particularly with portraits. If you're doing a very high ISO portrait, faces start to look a little bit glassy or doll like a glass doll. So I wouldn't recommend doing this for portraits, right? With high ISO or people with high ISO because it makes everybody look like a cartoon. But for landscapes like this, yeah, it's perfectly fine to dial this noise model all the way back to like minus 100 to telling telling DxO not to try to extract so much detail, just reduce the noise. Okay, and then let's see. Let's go down here and see if there's any detail. And again, I'm just looking in here. And I know this is very hard to see in the stream, but I'll try and explain what I'm doing is basically I'm just previewing parts of where DxO's Deep Prime is trying to fix things. And I'm going to compare. Let me just push up the detail in the bokeh, back this off. Yeah. All right, that'll work. Um, so what I did was basically I'm looking to see if it's pulling out more detail or not, and it seems to be pulling out a little bit of extra detail. Again, this is something I try to avoid doing, particularly with human faces, but with landscapes, it's okay. You can go crazy with these sliders. Uh, look over here. Okay, that looks good. All right, now let's see what we can do. So that's the basic things, right? Crop, noise reduction, white balance we didn't have to touch. Now I'm going into exposure settings. Um, so let me push that a little bit more. Get the contrast. And I'm going to go back to the preview window into this area and see how it looks. Okay. Increment this down just one. Maybe it's better if I use a tone curve. Let's see. No. All right. I think that's it. So again, I kind of followed the same logic in terms of composition where I got a line down here in the bottom left to bring your eye up and around the image this way. This looks like could have been a castle or something at one time, right? I don't have any sense of scale of how big or small this scene is. Um, but this technically could be the subject. All right, let's export this. And when that's done, we'll do a comparison. So we'll compare it against the, okay, so there's a side by side. Yeah, I think that cleaned up pretty nicely. Not happy with the sand down here. I might have to, yeah, this got a little bit too mushy. I like how this came out, this area over here. But this sand here, so what I'm gonna do, let me go back to the editing. I'm going to move my preview button down here so I can look at the sand. We go to where there's even a tiny hint of detail. Okay. So right in here, there's these shadows need to be more defined. There's these very subtle gradations. So I'm gonna push the noise model up a little bit. Ugh. Yeah, that's bringing out the detail, but the problem is when I go up into the sky, I start to get weird artifacts. So I think on this one, I might just leave it at 0, the noise model. I kind of got carried away, I guess. Let's try this again. Because on the export, the the sandy area just looked too mushy. Uh, but I might have to sacrifice the sky a little bit. So we're going to compare to that's mildly better. There's a little more detail here, but this whole area is really mush. So there may be no point to trying to recover that detail. It's just too much is lost. So what I'm going to do instead, so the noise model failed. I couldn't recover much detail that way. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna hide this. So I might have to do a local adjustment to hide sort of the bad things. But let me try it this way first. Wow. All right. This will be the final edit. So wait for that to export and then go in here. Now let's do a before and after. All right, that cleaned up nice. Um, Let me reset this so it's back to its original. All right, so there's the original here on the right. This is my edit on the left. And the key takeaway here is, all this landscape over here was just too mushy, kind of like you can see in the sand here. So I just had to crush it down to almost black so it's not as obvious. Because you can see how underexposed this is. If you were to go back to the same location, and you don't need the aurora. This is a really nice landscape. You could just do this with a on a clear sky, right? You're gonna have to bracket the shot so you can recover the um, the shadow area because it was just way underexposed. But I think that came out nice. This square composition right here is not bad actually. Let's um let's explore that option. I mean, I like the wide, but I think the square works too. Or two. Because honestly, there's nothing on the left or right of this particular part where I talked about this could be the subject right here. I think this emphasizes that point a little more. So this would actually be my final edit. So if we compare side by side, yeah, let's compare it against the other export we did. So again, here on the right is the original image, and then here on the left is my final edit. I like this square composition better. This works better for me because now we have a more defined subject, which it's just a rock, right? But still, I think this makes more sense to me. And then if you really look, anything outside of what I cropped on the left and right, it doesn't really add any more interest to the image, right? It doesn't add anything more to the story, so to speak. So I think this is the most interesting part right in here. So that's my final edit. All right. Let me take a look at the comments real quick. Sandy says, I love 16 by 9 crop. Whenever my pictures will support it. Yeah, I like 16 by 9. And then is this the kind of scene where I would use a grad ND filter? Uh, Possibly. Yeah, that would make sense. You could do that. I still think you need to bracket because I don't know because if you use a grad ND filter, right, you're gonna have to use an even longer exposure to get the sky properly exposed. And um, at that point, you kind of risk getting star trails or eggshell type stars, and then that's going to mess up the sky, right? So, grad ND filter, I don't think would work in this situation because you're already at 13 seconds, which is probably the maximum you could do. If I zoom all the way in, you can see the stars are almost pinpoint, but if you really look close, there's a little bit of coma here, but there's also a tiny bit of eggshell starting to happen in the stars. So doing a grad filter would effectively you'd have to double your exposure, and at that point, the stars would start to eggshell completely, and it wouldn't be it wouldn't be good for this scene. So again, this is a better scene to bracket, and even better if you're familiar with stacking and averaging images together. And this is where I use Photoshop a lot for my astrophotography. You do a lot of stacking and averaging uh, for these kind of images, and you can get a much better result. But definitely, I don't think a grad filter works at night when you have really long exposures and stars. Okay. To me, it looks alien with pink and yellow sky water. Yeah, a little bit, right? Um, and then Plato says agreed. I could back off the color a little bit, but I don't know how it looked in real life. So um, that's that. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right. Another beautiful landscape or seascape, right? And so let me go to my apply preset. Okay, so you can see how it fixed like all this vignetting and the brightness a little bit. And verticals on a seascape, I'm not a big fan of personally. I mean, I get what you're doing here. You're having this line go up here. There's some nice gradations in the sky. Let me just check the white balance. Yeah, we're at 5,000. Cloudy. Back to daylight. I think we're fine here. This image actually, I think, might look better as a black and white because it's already kind of monochromatic, right? There's only yellow and black. Um, So just do something different. We'll just go completely black and white, and then I don't have to worry about the white balance at all. Let's add let's add some clear view. Maybe not that much. And all right, so composition wise, I'm not sure what I would do. I'll go narrower and get rid of whatever that is. I think that works because the water is a little bit too busy, but the sky has these beautiful tones and gradations in it. So that's why I'm going to make like 2/3 of the image, mostly the sky and the sun, then center the sun. Uh, and then let's do a local adjustment here, and we'll use a linear gradient, but let's come down to here. I don't want to affect the mountains too much, but I want to get more detail in that sky. See if I can create some contrast and move that point. There we go. So I moved this little pointer to a darker part of the sky to kind of see if I can separate the tones a little more. And might be too much. Increase the tones. No, I don't like that. I like a little bit of glow in the sun. All right, that's good. Now let's go back to the tones here. See if I can bring out even more with this. Let's do midtones. Okay, and this is a film pack slider, so you may not have this in your regular Elite. I'm a little torn. Like a lot of times with DxO, you can only pick like two to get the best deal. Like you can pick Photolab Elite and Nick Collection, or you can pick Photolab Elite and Film Pack, and that's when you get the best deal. When I bought mine originally, I bought all three, and because they had some kind of package deal at the time. I haven't seen that deal again since, but uh, anyhow, let me. I started with DxO Photolab 4 originally. Okay. Not going to need quite as much clear view on the global scale. What I'd like to do is soften up the water a little bit. It's just a little bit too ripply or make it less of the image. But I don't really want to crop in much more. Maybe I'll crop in just a tiny bit more. Right about there. Maybe a slight horizon. Right there. Okay. All right, now let me preview the deep prime where the gradations are and see if they're still holding up after Ooh, that's a little bit busy. I'm seeing a little bit too much blotchiness up here again, so let me try and back off some of this contrast. I did it in local adjustment here, didn't I? Let me back that off. And then preview. Okay, that's better. That might I cranked up the micro contrast too much. Like I said, I'm a little rusty editing live, so my brain is just thinking too far. All right, I think I'm done. So let's export this one. One last thing I want to do, let me just compare the color again. This kind of works either way. I think it's going to depend if you print this image, where do you want to hang it, right? In some rooms, it might look better as a color in this color, depending on the color scheme of where you're going to hang it. Or you can go black and white where it'll go everywhere. But I think I still prefer the black and white. I don't know, I kind of prefer, I like the color too. Is that, there's a slight green tint to it. Let me pull that out. Okay. Yeah, that's better. So let me look at black and white now. Either way, it would just depend on where I'm going to, what's the final destination for this image, right? So let's export this as a black and white. And we'll let that apply. Okay, now let's compare it. Oh, let me reset it. There. So here's the original on the right. This is my edit here on the left. So you can see I cropped in quite a bit because you can see how busy this water is at the bottom, right? So that's kind of what was bothering me about this image altogether because you have like this contrast, which sometimes, you have this juxtaposition of contrast and chaos on one side, then this very surreal scene, soft scene on the other side of this image. But it's just too much chaos here in the water. So I tried to minimize that with this crop. Um, so there's there's my edit. There's the original. Okay, let me check the chat section real quick. Sister Natura came in. How you doing? And let's see. Andy likes the black and white also. Okay, good. And yeah, definitely wait for Black Friday on anything, right? Software especially. They usually, because they can discount it down to almost 90% sometimes because they're just, I know they got overhead, right? But there's not like a production cost in software, so to speak. Um, okay. So yeah, there's my edit. I think that works. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, we have an owl here. This is all these compositions always let me go ahead and apply a preset real quick. These compositions always get me interested in a sense where you have normally you like to think of the subject, in this case the owl flying into the frame, but this one is sort of flying more out of the frame. I've always wanted to try to pull off a composition where something is flying out of the frame rather than into the frame, but I've never been able to do it. But I've seen some that look really good, but it just I can't do it. So for me, this is This is going to be a square crop all the way. And I'm going to get rid of this tree up at the top and that little bit at the bottom. I don't like this brighter area. And then we'll have them fly into the frame like so, just ever so slightly. And so we have good separation. Let me check the white balance. I think we're good here. I'll just push it to daylight. And let me pull in, just add a little more depth to the image with contrast or the selective tones. Pull the highlight in a tiny bit, just because I want to try and get some of the details in the feather back. And then the eye, let's go into the local adjustments here. See if I can bring back some of this eye. Just give it a little more pop there. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. All right, let's see how Deep Prime's doing on this. Man, this is another super high ISO one. You guys are not kidding around with me today, huh? Okay. So I'm just looking in this little window here. Okay, yeah, I like that. Let me look over here. Make sure it still looks somewhat natural. That's a little bit too much. Yeah, right about there. Maybe a tiny bit more. And let me go to, so I'm going to mix sort of this background a little bit. I'm going to do kind of an unsharp mask. I'm going to preview different areas. Okay, how about that area? I think that'll look good when it's done. It's a little bit too much, but what if I turn this off and back on? Yeah, let me back this off a little bit. Off, on. Yeah, that gives it just a tiny bit more bite. All right. So I added a little unsharp mask in addition to lens sharpness. And say from here, I'm going to add a tiny bit of vignette. Let me show you how to add a vignette. If you don't have film pack, I can show you how to add a vignette. Just do it with the local adjustment. So make a control point and just kind of put it somewhere in the middle here and expand it out. And then the mask selectivity, just turn these all the way down to 0. And then click the inverse button here, invert mask, and then just pull the exposure back like so. So that's how you can do a mask if you don't have, or create a vignette if you don't have film pack. That's one way to do it. I think I need to crop just a tiny bit more because this part's bugging me a little bit. Okay. All right. Let's look at color. maybe a little bit of vibrancy. So vibrancy just increases colors that are a little bit weak. So I'm just trying to increase the colors here on the owl without pushing them too much everywhere else. And one last thing. No, I think we're good. I think the highlights are perfectly fine. Okay, good. I think I'm done. Let's export this so that we can see the difference with DxO D prime applied and all of that. And I'll look at the chat real quick. It says Rick says, well, let me go up a little bit. So Jeff is interested to see the noise. Yeah, I think the noise reduction is going to look good on this one. And then Rick says, using noise reduction, I guess I can share these. I read, I read 1600 ISO below, use prime, 3200 ISO below, use D prime, 3200 above, use prime XD. This is a good, is this a good rule? Um, I always do D prime XD because I can back off the uh, the effect of the D prime. Now, if you have computer performance issues, right? Like if you don't have the most powerful computer, that makes a lot of sense to kind of separate prime, D prime XD, because you can get virtually the same result with, say, D prime as you can with D prime XD or even with prime. And in about a quarter of the time it takes to run D prime XD on a slow computer, you might be waiting 4 or 5 minutes for D prime XD to work on a slower computer. But I always apply D prime XD uh, in every scenario because I finally have a really fast computer. So as you can see, like I've been editing these, it only takes a few seconds for it to process D prime XD for me. So I apply it to everything. But I haven't really compared like breaking up the ISO 1600, 3200, etc., to see if there's really a difference. I always go for the D prime XD. It's kind of like in Star Trek. I never understood why they have like warp 5, right? You have impulse power. Just go to warp 10 if you're going to go to your next destination, right? Why all these steps in between? So that's kind of my approach a lot of times with D prime is like, why would I choose, impulse power when I can go to warp 10 like this, right? So, but honestly, I haven't tried using using the other primes or noise reduction algorithms at different ISO levels. The only time I would recommend that is when you have a very slow computer. A lot of times, something like prime or D prime will get you basically the same result on the lower ISO images without taking forever to finish. And creative vignetting is still available under FX tab. Oh, okay. My experience agrees with Rick, especially on my older PC. Oh, so John McCormick is validating what I just said. On older computers, yeah, it's it doesn't make sense to go with D prime XD when the differences you'd have to really pixel peep to see the differences. Okay, let's see how this came out. So we're going to compare this with the. So let me reset it, and then we'll compare it. So let's just look at the noise reduction here. I think it did a fabulous job. I over sharpened a tiny bit. I could easily back that off a little bit because it looks a little bit too much in here. Maybe I shouldn't have done the unsharp mask, but I think it did a really good job on the noise reduction. And it brought out a lot of the details in the feathers, like especially down on this part of the wing, it looks really good compared to the original. And the key to editing wildlife for me is always making sure that, and really it's for anything that has eyes, always bring out the eyes if you can, like I've done here. I get a lot more pop. Um, So there's the final edit. All right, let's go to the next one. And we have another bird picture, this time a crow. So let me apply my preset. Okay. And so we got another birdie up here. This one, we're definitely going to crank up the color on that eye. And composition wise, I think we can just do a square crop again. So the question is how much bush and how much bird and sky? If I do an even 50-50 split or 1/3 split, a slight tilt too. Because the other thing I like to do is I like to sort of level something on the bird. Like in this case, I'm kind of leveling the eye and the beak to be kind of horizontal. Because the way it was before, it was kind of looking up. So it's just a compositional choice. Again, everything is very subjective here, right? So that's too much sky. So I want more bush. Okay, that works. And then we'll fix this one little spot here real quick. Okay. All right, let's darken up. Let's just push the white balance to daylight. Oh, no, that doesn't look good. Why is that so blue? It's daylight. It shouldn't be this blue. What was originally? Camera chose 7,000. I guess that looks good. Maybe add a little bit of magenta. And then let's do some local adjustments. First, let me work on just kind of well, let me see what a vignette looks like. No, I don't think that's going to work. So I'm going to have to go with more of a linear type gradient. So if I make this brighter and maybe a little warmer, okay, good. And then let's make a new one. Let's go in the opposite direction and let's give it a little bit more punch. Is there anything? All right, I like that. And then let's see what we can do with this bird and bring out the eye. There we go. So we'll do that. Let's push the vibrancy. Wow, there's not much color left there, so I'm just going to push the white balance and force it to be more yellow. Okay, good. Uh, and then let's do some local adjustments on the wings and things and see where we're at. Hmm. This is another one, even though this is probably a base ISO. Let me look. Yeah. Oh, no, we're at ISO 2000. Okay. No wonder. I was like, why is there so much noise when I'm pushing these shadows? I mean, even at base ISO, you're going to get noise when you push shadows like this. But now that I saw we're at ISO 2000, kind of explains why when I started pushing them, it was like the noise was creeping up really fast. Uh, but I think I can go a little bit more. About there. Let's add a little bit in here. Okay, good. I think that's all we need to do for this one. Let me just preview some of these areas. Make sure it didn't get too weird on me. How about the eye? I pull out a little bit more. Yeah, just a little more detail. Okay, we're done. So let's export this one. That should only take a few seconds to process, and then we'll do a comparison. Okay, so let me reset this image back to its original, and then, so there's the before and after, kind of on a larger scale, right? Uh, so again, a square crop, and then I just added a little bit more depth again, in this case, by just kind of whiting out the corner here and then making it dark on the other corner, just to give the image some depth, because this is another image that's actually really flat. And then if we look at the, let's see how it processed this, the noise. Look at these little bugs everywhere. I think it did a good job. There's the original over here. Whoops. Um, did a really good job bringing out the details in the feather. A little bit of mush here because of, it's just so dark. But wherever the light was, it did an excellent job pulling out the noise. So there's the and a slight tilt, right? So I think that looks a lot better, in my opinion. Okay. Let's go to the next one. I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Um, yeah, P prime XD can cause artifacts. So I've noticed this in very dark images at high ISO. It it tries to pull detail out where there's really no detail there. Hence, you get these artifacts, right? So you have to be like the image of the owl is a good example of where D prime XD worked really well, and also the crow picture. I think it worked really well wherever the light was. But you can see on the crow where and where it was almost black, and I tried to pull out detail from there. It didn't do quite as good a job, but that's a tough ask for any software, I think. John, you're funny. Let's see. And then Andy Allen this looks like a question here. Is creative vignetting a film lab function? Yes, it is. Film pack, I think is the official name. Yeah, don't you think I only have the watermark under the FX tab? Yeah. So yeah, that sounds right when it comes to if you don't have the film pack. Um, I mean, the film pack is nice. I would get it if you want to do film looks, and things like that. But don't get it because of the vignetting, because I showed earlier how you can create vignette without using film pack. Um, if they have a double deal where you can pick two and get the best deal, I would get DxO and Nick Collection as my pair. Uh, film pack, I think some of the micro contrast sliders, and I think there's some other things in there. Uh, cooling filters and things that it has that are nice. But overall, I think I would go Nick Collection and DxO if you were to get a pair. But if you already have DxO, then if you want to add something on, I'd probably add Nick Collection. And Jeanette is here. Hi, Jeanette. How are you? Um, I'll do another edit. So many people ask me to do these live stream edits again, so I'm going to start doing them again. Uh, Thank you, Marcel. Marcel is here. How are you? Uh, I'm not having any issues with Flickr. I don't use it that much other than to post a few things and look at other people's stuff. But yeah, I'm very still. Sometimes it looks like the stream may have frozen, but that's because I'm really good at not moving because I do so much practice in self-portraits and things. Okay, so let's go to this next image. And wow, it's 11:20, so I'm taking forever on these. I'm sorry. Let me let me see here. So again, let's apply just the basic preset that I have. And that didn't do much. Is this a okay, so again, I'm looking at the geometry here. I see a nice little triangle here and then a triangle here. So we don't really need this. I want this to be the foreground, this to be the background. So I think these three layers right here give enough depth that we don't really need this. Let's see what a 16 by 9 looks like. Yeah, I like that. We'll just go up and then where is the light? The light is coming in again from the right side, a little bit behind this this scene. That's tough. So it's a kind of everything's kind of backlit. That's why the shadows are there's not like good shadows here. It's just everything is kind of dark in the front and more backlit. That's always like the worst light, in my opinion. I'm gonna apply a perspective correction real quick. No, that looks like crap. All right. So what we need to do is cool off, or I'm sorry, warm up the image a bit. So let me check the white balance. Yeah, we're already at 7,000. So we're gonna have to go shade. Yeah, because all this, honestly, everything in this image is in shade except for the corners, like the very sides. So I don't know if I can just push the highlights to emphasize that more. the midtones and then pull the blacks in. All right, now let's do some local adjustments. Wow, this image is still too cold. Warm it up some more. If I do the color picker, let's pick this area right here. All right, we'll just go with that. Um, where was I going? Oh, local adjustments. So let's add a linear gradient right in here and move this dropper up here. There we go. Yeah, see, there's some warmth up here. Let's warm it up even more. Okay, that's good. See if we can add some blue. So I'm gonna push the blues a little bit. I think this is new in Photolab 7. You can do the color wheel on the control point. Now, how about we just pull the luminosity a little bit and warm it up just a little bit more. Oh, good. Uh, there's that. And then let's see if we can do something here. I'm not sure exactly what I need to do here. Play with the tones a little bit. Okay, I like that. And then let me just light paint a little bit with a control point. What I'm going to do is just kind of shine a little bit of warmth on some of these. Right in here. Okay, the only other thing is I want to make these reds a little bit more punchy. Uh, on all these roofs. So I think I can get away with doing that globally. Let me take a look. We pick these are oranges. How about up here? These are more red. So I'm going to stretch the color wheel this way. And let's just see if I can push those a bit more. Yeah, a little brighter. Okay, good. The only other thing, let me go back to these control points. I'm gonna get rid of this one. This is a little bit busy here. So I'm gonna make a new control point and just work on this area in here. and pull the contrast. Okay, good. All right, I think I'm done. Um, let's export that. Oh, Druid's come in. How are you, Druid? All right, let's see how that looks. So let's reset back to the original and then do a quick comparison. Oops, let's compare it against the. So there's my image on the left, the original image here on the right. So again, the crop is like the sky's a little bit too yellow. I probably back that off a little bit if we went back, but just again, this whole area in here is not helping the scene. It's just a mess down here. So that's why I cropped that out. And I really like the oranges and the reds on these roofs. So I think that looks good. So let's go to a full screen. Yeah, that looks good. So that's mine. There's the original, and there's my edit. All right, let's go to the next one. Anything new in the chat here? Oh, thank you, Jeanette. Um, all right, last one. Uh, this guy is jamming. All right, so let's see. Apply my basic preset, and so this guitar. Let's see if I can bring out those flames because the angle, unfortunately, is right where there's glare. So I think a clear view, a local apply to the clear view. I think white balance were good. Assuming this is outdoors, because there's so much light here on the left side. There's really strong lights in the background, but they're not doing anything. So I bet this is an outdoor concert. Of course, the reflection on the guitar gives it away too, right? But um, normally, if this was indoors, I would try and take advantage of these lights in the background, but they're not doing much other than there's a little bit of rim lighting on this guy, but it's hardly doing anything here. Composition-wise, I think we're good. We can't really crop off. Well, we could. We could crop off a little bit on the right. Let me just look at a quick crop. I don't think I need to crop, but it's below the knees. That's a little better, I think. Okay. Let's see if I can pull in. Oops, wrong slider. Pull in some of the highlights just to bring the skin tones back. Push the midtones a bit. Pull the blacks in. Okay. Now let's do some local adjustments. So since we don't really have eyes on this guy, yeah, there's not much I can do, but I'm going to brighten his face up a little bit like that. And Maybe a little bit more. Okay. Let's see if Clearview will bring out any of this guitar, the flames. I really like those, but a little bit, but they're pretty much washed out. Oops. Probably better to use a brush on this, but okay. There's that. And I think I want to darken the background just a little bit more. So maybe I'll just use a brush. And then we'll cool it off. So do a slight tilt this way. And where did my brush go? Okay, good. Pull off a little bit there. And uh, maybe let me reduce the flow. I didn't want to pull out that much. There, that's better. Okay, and let's cool it off a little more. Maybe give it a little magenta. All right, I think I'm done. Uh, let's export that. And Darkos asks, have you ever worked with heap files? No, I have not. I still don't understand the point of a heap file. If, as a photographer, right? I don't see the point of a heap file if you have a raw file. Raw file is going to give you more data. And really, heap files you can only share. I think it's an Apple thing. Well, anyway, no, I've never worked with it. All right, let's compare. So let me reset this. Compare it against. Whoops. All right, so there's the edit here on the left. So yeah, I really wanted to bring out the guitar more, or the flames. I need to brush out. I left a little bit of blue on this guitar, But anyhow, yeah, brighten this face so you can see it, and then kind of push the background more out of the way by just making it darker and then adding some blue to even make it less. What I should have done is probably warmed up the image a tiny bit more. I can't help it. Let me fix one more thing since I have a minute here. Uh, back. Let me just do a global adjustment on the tone, the white balance, and then fix this. Control point. Oops. All right. Well, I would spend more time on that. We just export it. We'll do one more quick look see. That export and compare. All right. So here's the original. Here's my edit. Yeah, I think that works. Not a lot there. Not a lot, but it is mainly just bringing the highlights in on this image and then a slight crop. That's it. Okay. Um, I think that's all I would do with this. I don't see anything else. All right. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for sending those in. Now, I also gave you the opportunity to edit my pictures, so you might see them down there on the bottom left. Uh, but I forget what the original looked like. But let's go ahead and look at what you guys sent in. Okay. Wow, that looks good. I like this sort of purplish sort of treatment to it, and a little bit of softening as well, and then definitely brought in the skies. Good job. Surge did this. Oh, okay. That's why there's softness there. Surge is always like softening his what do you call it, forest images. So it makes sense he would have softened this one a little bit too. And then let's see. Oh, I like this. Nice vintage feel to it. It might have been done with a DxO film pack. I'm not sure. But there's another one in from Surge, it looks like. I like this better than the previous one. That purple sort of tone to it I didn't care for, but I like this black and white. I like that. Okay. And then this one. All right, I like it. Kind of warmed it up a little bit and some vignette and interesting take on the perspective though, because now the building looks a little bit like there's a little bit of a keystone. I don't know if that was in the original or not. I can't remember. Because I don't think Surge doesn't have quite that keystoning as this one. This one definitely looks a little more keystone, so that might be a creative choice, right? Okay. Um, yeah, nice processing overall. Really brought this one sign out back here. That's pretty solid. I would have extended this brightness that you did on this pump and this sign to over here, to this one pump over here. It looks like he missed this one piece right here. Uh, but other than that, nice. Then this one is also from a Nick. A little bit of creative addition here of a moon. That's cool. So now it looks like a night image. I like it. I like it when you guys really push things to be creative. I remember Dave used to always put flames in the images. They were hilarious. Surprised you didn't send one in with a gas station. Flames would seem like the best thing, right, for this. Okay. I guess I don't know if you guys saw my edit. Let me see where it is. It is I think I put it on Flickr. Let me take a quick look. Yeah, there it is. So this was my edit on the image. Obviously, I did a lot of light painting, right? I turned all these light bulbs on. I turned on the light here in the middle, and then I emphasized the reflections on the windows. But yeah, and then like everyone else, I kind of pulled in this dramatic sky because it was just kind of washed out in the original raw image. Um, okay, that looks great. So great, guys. I really appreciate everyone sending their images in for me to edit. It's really good practice for me, and hopefully you guys learned something too. Um, let me switch over to a regular screen. Yeah, there we go. Um, I think a lot of people really like these and have missed them, so I'm definitely going to start doing more of these. And so keep sending them in. But I think what I'll do is I'm going to limit it to 10 images altogether because they were coming in when I was doing this on a regular basis. I was getting 20, 30 images at a time, and it was just the streams would take forever. So I think I might do 10. If I get more than 10, what I might do is edit them before the stream goes live and just show them to you, but then get into editing 10 individual images that I think shows off the certain techniques in editing that I use. Um, what you saw mostly today was the local adjustments and how I use those. Um, I tried to share my thought process on my composition and what I think is important or not important. But anyhow, I guess that's it for today. If you guys enjoy these streams, of course, always you can always buy me a coffee or make a donation. The links below, they're greatly appreciated. They help me continue make videos like this because it's been a slow for me both making videos and also making doing jobs. But on the plus side, I've been going out taking more pictures and practicing self portraits. So I'm going to do some videos on how I did those, more behind the scenes stuff. But I need to get a little better at it. Uh, I'm not quite where I want to be on doing the portraits and things, and I want to do some more photo walks and stuff too. So definitely, I want to do uh, all of that. Um, all the stuff I used to do all the time, right? So you guys, thanks so much for being here today. Uh, look for these live streams. Hopefully, I give you a little more notice than I usually do, so that you know they're coming. But I'll try and get back to doing more live streams again. Thanks again for being here. We'll see you guys again soon.